Thank you. Yeah, so thanks for joining. It's David Smith here from Arrow. We really appreciate you being here. Yeah, another minute or two, and we will kick it all off. In fact, I might just leave it until sort of a couple of minutes after 10:30, which is, I reckon, that's about 15 seconds on my phone. So in fact, I'm going to kind of go through this now because I'll just sort of do the housekeeping part. So yeah, welcome along. It's David Smith from Arrow here. If you're watching this back on demand, thanks for joining us on demand as well. We appreciate you taking the time to stream this back. This will be up on our YouTube channel, if I can say that. Hopefully later on today. If not, then hopefully by tomorrow as well. Yeah, so thanks for joining us. Don't panic, you're not going to be hearing from me too much at all. I will be introducing our presenters from Commvault very, very shortly. So I've just got a little bit of housekeeping. If you just go through to the next slide, please, that would be amazing. So as an attendee on today's webinar, you are muted by default. So the only people that you will be able to hear from and see is myself, my colleague Gary Milner from Arrow, and Jose and Gerardo from Commvault, who I'll introduce shortly. So you are muted by default. If you do have any questions and you'd like to ask those as we go through, there is a little Q&A button at the top of your Teams webinar screen there. So any questions that you've got, please do put them into the Q&A box, and what we will do is we'll have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar as well. If you do have any queries, please do put those in there. As I said at the start of this is going to be recorded, so you will be able to watch this back live. You'll get a link to watch it back streamed through Teams as well later on today. And as I say, we'll also put it up onto our YouTube channel too, so you can share that with the rest of your team. And then any queries sort of post-webinar, there's the Commvault email address at Arrow as well. So that's definitely enough from me. I'm going to hand it straight over to Gerardo from Commvault, who's going to do the main part of the presentation, and then he's going to hand it over to Jose for a live demo. So, Gerardo, good morning. How are you?
Hello, David. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, just a brief introduction of myself. I'm Gerardo Perez. I'm a pre-sales engineer here at Commvault, and I'm also aligned to UK division. And yeah, I'm always trying to understand our customers' project, their technical requirements, on how we can properly map that to Commvault's portfolios and solutions. Yeah, I'm also here with my colleague Jose. If you can introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, name's Jose. I work with Gerardo, same role, same everything, so that's already introduced. So yeah, basically I'm here to support Gerardo on this presentation. I will be doing the quick demonstration at the end. So yeah, pleased to meet you.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. So I just wanted to go first on the agenda for today, since of course we're going to be talking about not only about Cleanroom as a solution, but also about what is recovery readiness and why it is a security imperative. I think it's a really important topic to tackle. And of course, what is the Cleanroom recovery solution from Commvault, and why do my customers and our customers need it? Of course, what is new with Cleanroom Recovery? Because as you know, Commvault is always innovating in their, not only with supporting new workloads, for example, but also innovating in their existing solutions. So of course, there are new things happening with Cleanroom. And of course, as Jose just mentioned, a summary at the end, of course, how it comes together, of this comes together in a demo, and then of course the Q&A that, as David mentioned, it's available either with a button, or of course, you can ask them to David as well with the teams, in the Teams meeting. So without further ado, first things first, what is recovery readiness, right? So why also it is a imperative solution, and what is the CISO's role, right? What is so important for CISOs? So the first thing that we'll see in the slide here is the NIST cybersecurity framework, and this is quite key for CISOs. So CISOs in general bridge technical expertise with executive decisions, deploying defensive tech, detecting threats, and implementing incident response plans. Also, something really important we should mention is that they must ensure business continuity by protecting their critical assets, and also aligning all the business objectives with the data resilience and recovery. So of course, they need to manage all this risk. They need to manage and embrace, for example, the digital transformation efforts of the company or the organization. And also, really important, they are responsible for secure the entire organizational state, right? So The NIST cybersecurity framework is key for them because it has the main 5 functions that you see in the slide. The first 3, identify, protect, and detect. And then, of course, we have respond and recovery. The first 3 are the starting point, but of course, they don't cover the full picture because, of course, companies are blind to the unknowns, right? You don't know what you don't know, really. So they must embrace the breach. There's a philosophy that we have at Commvault that is not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when you're gonna get breached, right? So when this happens, what would you do, right? What is your plan when this happens? Well, the next 2, respond and recovery, this basically enable businesses to become cyber resilient. So what does cyber resiliency or being cyber resilient means is that you can keep going or keep things operational even after a cyber incident, right, in short terms. Therefore, the NIST cybersecurity framework is critical for them, in this case, the CISOs, and of course for the whole organization, because CISOs use the NIST framework to demonstrate readiness and adhere to best practices. So we should also talk about the whole industry, how is reacting to this cyber resiliency efforts. For example, we have third-party organizations like Gartner and IDC, and they care about cyber resilience. From what we have seen, for 3 main factors. Of course, in increasing threats, because Gartner and IDC emphasize cyber resilience due to the growing sophistication and frequency of cyber threats, as you have seen in multiple blogs and also news around different big companies or enterprises being hit by ransomware. However, this is not limited to big enterprises. Also, the small and medium-sized organizations are being impacted as well. And of course, this demands a robust protection for operations and data. That's why, as you can see in the slide, Gartner also is has multiple reports, as well as IDC, etc. Now, also really important that I mentioned before that is highlighted in the NIST framework is the business continuity, right? The cyber resilience is crucial for an organization's ability to withstand, respond, and to recover from cyber attacks while maintaining business continuity. So of course, that's the cyber resilient part that we just talked about. And last but not least, minimizing impact, right? So emphasizing cyber resilience helps minimize downtime, ensure seamless service delivery, and support secure innovation to maintain customer trust, which in the end protects or supports the efforts around one of the most important assets of an organization and companies in today's world, which is their reputation, right? So I like to take a bit of a pause, not a pause, but just to briefly break down this slide for you, because the headline is quite important to understand, because it can take over 3 weeks for businesses to recover from a cyber attack. We say, okay, but 3 weeks is not that much. Well, in business days and how much cost or how many losses it means, it does have a huge impact on any organization. So Commvault tackles this problem with a unique approach to cyber resilience that no other vendor in the space offers. And also, I'd like to take a look at the timeline of a typical recovery in order to highlight that unique approach, right? What you see is that while we believe that data recovery is critical to any resilience practice, we also believe that recovering application data is only half of the battle. So, as you can see on the far right, on average, it takes 24 days for an organization to recover from a cyber incident. And that's not recovering everything. We're talking about just the most critical data. So in this typical timeline, and again, this varies from organization to organization because we're talking about small, medium, big enterprises, everyone has to consider this for their cyber resiliency efforts. You must notice that the time it takes to recover critical application data only represents, or better said, only the application data represents 7 days, which in any case will be a third of the total time of the recovery process. So of course, this is critical when it comes to understanding this timeline, because of course, as I just said, this is an important set of time to compress. And we're only talking about the data application only, or the critical assets. But what about the rest? Right? So in order to reestablish the full production environment, it takes between 1 up to 3 months or even more, therefore, depending on the size organization, to be back in operations or be back from the downtime. But now there's another challenge, or there are 3 main challenges that we see with the current cyber recovery readiness. And most of them, they fall short because of 3 main things that we just see in the slide here. First of all, it can be expensive and complex because doing it by yourself or doing it by your own resources, I'm talking as an organization, can be expensive because you have to either provide some physical infrastructure or build a recovery environment, not only provision it, but also maintain it, keep it up to date, and of course test all the critical applications around it. And this untenable for most of the organizations because, again, it can be complex and it can be expensive. Also, the delta between plans, or in other words, the gap between the plans and the actual readiness, is massive because, again, it's not only complex and expensive, but also, or most of organizations are starting on this and they don't have a full coverage of all the things that they need to consider. So, of course, even though they have good efforts or providing good efforts, it still falls short because it lacks depth. And finally, they rely on DR plans, or disaster recovery plans, or simulations, which it's okay because we're talking about disaster recovery, but when you're talking about cyber recovery, it's different. Disaster recovery wants to recover fast as possible. However, cyber recovery focuses on recovery not only as fast as possible, but to most of the focus is to recover clean. So of course you don't re-inject something or a malware back into production, right? So disaster recovery is good, but again, it falls short when it comes to a cyber incident. Now, what is clean room and why do my customers or our customers need it? Because of the 3 pain points that we just talked about, clean room addresses these challenges in really specific ways. The first one is that now it's possible for any organization because, again, it makes testing and readiness simple. Everything is automated on demand. So, of course, it avoids any costly or dedicated infrastructure. And as well, it provides broad support when it comes to workloads. And that way, it avoids any complexity when it comes to setting up the environment. And finally, the built-in automation, which further simplifies their workflow. Then, of course, the testing of critical recovery can be full and frequent. And again, it's reliable because you can test it every time that you need it in order to understand that when the breach happens, you can recover seamlessly. And this is critical for assets like Active Directory, for example. That is your authentication source, your main authentication source. And Cleanroom makes it easy to recover, right? And of course, you can perform full operational tests and regular tests to ensure readiness. And finally, when it comes to the gap between plans and actual readiness, is that now it's within reach because cyber recovery readiness, as I mentioned before, now it's automated, simplified with Cleanroom. So when it comes to Commvault Cleanroom Recovery or Commvault Cloud Cleanroom Recovery, we must say it's a solution for cyber recovery that creates a fully isolated, orchestrated recovery environment in the cloud. This is really important because, again, this isolated environment in the cloud, this is what they call the clean room, right? It's clean. Has never been provisioned before. It's completely clean. Therefore, not a single actor has been able to access it because, first of all, it didn't exist, right? Until you perform a clean room recovery. So you basically perform it on demand. It creates it on demand. And of course, it is designed to let organizations recover only their most critical systems, validate them in isolation, and test them safely before reintroducing anything into production, just as we mentioned before. And this is not backup and restore in the traditional sense. Cleanroom spins up a recovery infrastructure on demand, as I just mentioned, using only clean backup data stored on a secondary or tertiary copy, in this case in Air Gap Protect. That's why we also recommend to go with Air Gap Protect. If you want to have more details of what is Air Gap Protect, the previous webinar was about Air Gap Protect, and of course we talk a lot more in depth about Air Gap Protect. But in short, it's Commvault storage managed service that it's immutable by design because it's completely secured, managed, and maintained by Commvault. And that way will limit any lateral movement from bad actors. So of course your data is not only isolated, but also air gap from your environment, from your production, and is of course clean. Now, it includes automated orchestration. I'm talking now about Cleanroom because it leverages Air Gap Protect, network isolation, and the ability to run recovery workflows in a secure cloud space that we just mentioned, and all without depending on a potential compromised production environment. And it is designed specifically for situations where you cannot trust the regional infrastructure or cannot afford to bring everything back at once. Right. So as we mentioned before, it can be a critical asset. It can be overall testing of your applications, but everything on demand, of course, tailored. Now, I like to take you through a bit of a breakdown of how it works. Right. It's going to be really simple, and of course, Jose will be showing you how all of this comes together in the actual demo. But just really basic prerequisites, really. On your left-hand side, you have your production, right? Of course, you have to use Commvault, and then you have Air Gap Protect, right? That's basically the three main requisites, and then of course you can use Cleanroom on top of that. So you are leveraging your backup state that you have with Commvault, right? Now, the next thing you need to ensure is that you have access to cloud.commvault.com, and everything will be already set up. So how does this look? First of all, you apply your licenses when it comes to Cleanroom Recovery, and you're ready to go, as we just mentioned, on your supported platforms, also the Commvault Cloud. When it comes to the control plane and the data plane, you already know that this is completely decoupled when it comes to the Commvault's approach. And after you do this, of course, you need to have that Air Gap copy of your data in Air Gap Protect. There's nothing else that you need to do. Then after this, you basically can start testing already, right? You can go to the cloud.commvault.com that I just mentioned and start a control plane recovery, which of course Jose will demonstrate later. And once that is complete, you're ready to take that immutable and indelible copy of your data in Air Gap Protect and move it to a brand new tenant with all new credentials. In this case, we're talking about Azure, that cloud environment that is isolated and never existed before. In other words, that clean room. And this delivers a clean environment that no bad actors have ever breached, right? So 1, 2, 3, and you achieve the desired outcome. Now, something I must mention is that now we started readiness testing in a newly created new clean tenant. We just created it, but now we can provide either the forensic analysis, that readiness testing, and of course, understanding the blast radius report when it comes to forensics. And of course, all of this can use auto scaling depending on our customers' environment. Either it's a small, medium, or a big enterprise. We use AI to generate what machines need to be recovered or what assets also needs to be recovered, and everything can be set in place beforehand. Since Commvault utilizes the any-to-any portability when we recover data, for example, from any source to any destination, right? Cross-hypervisor, cross-cloud, on-prem to cloud, it doesn't really matter. It really simplifies the recovery process. As I mentioned before, one of the main challenges that Cleanroom Recovery tackles is the complexity and the expensive bit of having a Cleanroom Recovery by your own, right? So everything is automated as well, simplified, and reduces complexity. And of course, in that case, you can always restore your AD back in place, in this case, or to better said to the environment, the clean environment, so everything talks with each other. Apps, users, since of course, as I mentioned before, is your main authentication source. Right? Now, in other words, to get started with Cleanroom Recovery, you only require a few things. First of all, the first pillar out of 4, the registration, right? Then, of course, you need to start your cloud preparation to understand what cloud you need, because this is available for Azure and AWS. Then, of course, you have your recovery planning, and finally, your validation, right? With the assumption that a copy of your data already exists in Air Gap Protect, right? Now, as I mentioned before, just as a final update, Cleanroom is always evolving, just like any other solution within Commvault. So what is new with Cleanroom? Now we have automated Cleanroom creation, which, in other words, just to give you a bit of background, at the beginning of Cleanroom, we needed to provision that, or the customers needed to provision that, or pre-provision manually in the cloud. But now, of course, after several efforts and testing, we address that challenge of manually provision it. And of course, not only the manual provision or the human effort was the main challenge, but also the maybe inconsistent configurations of being done manually. On top of that, the high operational overhead that it demands. Our solution is the automated Cleanroom creation, which in other words is a one-click of orchestration of networking resources, permissions, and security controls. And what this gives is basically speed to provision the Cleanroom, consistency because it's now standardized, and also cost efficiency since it's automated and only done on demand. So of course it minimizes any idle resources and keeps an optimized TCO. And finally, compliance and security. So of course it provisions all the validated security measures and of course the true isolation in order to keep that Cleanroom totally untouched. And what's changed really is the security center with threat indicators and Cleanroom under one umbrella. Also enable auto scaling for access nodes or media agents, you may also know it. Backup gateway, so of course, depending on organization, those are small, big, medium, it'll scale as it needs. And also the prerequisites for cross-hypervisor recovery. All the drivers are installed automatically, and the conversation between static IP and dynamic IPs is automated as well. And also the Cleanroom environment that is automated. In this case, for Azure, we're talking about the automation of the Azure app creation, the permissions and roles, the resource group, and networking resources. For this, AWS will have the same equivalent in AWS terms. It will have the same equivalent AWS capabilities as well for AWS, but it will be available in the near future. So just stay tuned for that. So before I finish, a summary. Right, just a brief summary, 1-minute summary. Remember this timeline that we talked about, that it takes average 24 days plus 1 to 3 months in order to establish full production. So how does it actually look like with Cleanroom? We have seen that since Commvault covers such a broad range of workloads, it's common for organizations to consolidate from multiple systems to a centralized single platform with Commvault. And based on a recent customer survey, 54% of the respondents consolidated to Commvault from 2 systems, and 32% consolidated from 3 systems or more. So this consolidation centralized, or better said, this consolidation to a centralized unified resilience platform that is Commvault Cloud, especially with our unique innovation that accelerates rebuilding and recovery. Add it all together, and it delivers the fastest mean time to recover, around 2.7 times faster recovery across the entire rebuild and recovery timeline. So compared to the previous timeline, we compress that time significantly. And remember, organizations are blind to unknowns. They don't know what they don't know when it comes to a cyber incident. Attackers are persistent and ever evolving. And this is why breaches continue to happen and why organizations need to prepare for a breach in this case, right? So our position, focus, and value with Cleanroom Recovery is comprehensive testing and validation environment, secure forensic analysis, and reduced production downtime. And of course, it all translates to even a lower TCO compared to native tools and 3 times lower compared to the competition. So all of this, of course, comes together in what we call a cleanroom recovery. So now, how does it look like? What is the actual solution, right? So of course, we'll have demo time now. So let's take a look at the new automated cleanroom process and how it comes together in a demo. Jose, the stage is yours now.
Thank you very much. So let me share my screen, 1 second. Can you see that right now? Can you confirm, Gerardo, that you can see my screen, please?
Yeah, that's brilliant, Jose. Thank you.
Perfect. Let me stop sharing my webcam for a second, because just while I present, because I don't fully trust my internet connection here. So hopefully this is pretty smooth. So yeah, this is the Commvault console, right? This is a conserve that is running on premises. Let's imagine that this is a installation of Commvault for my own data center running on premises, right? And I have a bunch of VMs, some file servers. It's not a massive environment, right? But this is just to be used for the demonstration, so that's fine. So the main thing about the cleanroom recovery is the first step where I recover my conserve. So if I suffer a ransomware attack, all of my VMs, the entirety of my environment is going to be down or is going to be unreachable, right? So that is including this conserve that I'm using right now, which I need to use in order to recover my VMs. So how do we solve that? This is the first step. So now what I'm going to show you is basically the requirements that we need to do in order for Cleanroom to work, right? So first thing, I'm going to manage system here, and then maintenance, and then I have the DR backups. So what this is a free service that Commvault provides where you can back up your conserve, so the console that you use to manage the backups with Commvault, into the Commvault Cloud. So this is going to back up all of my conserve and all of my metadata every single day to the Commvault Cloud. So you need to make sure this little toggling here is enabled. When this is enabled, I will have a copy of my conserve in the cloud, and that copy is the one that we're going to use for the Cleanroom, right? Then the second requirement is the storage. And I think Gerardo mentioned that already, but just to make sure, this is the air gap protected storage from Commvault. This is our own immutable air gap storage in the cloud, and you need to have this storage in order for Cleanroom to work. So you can see I have 1 terabyte in here, and I have a plan in here, which is the one where we configure which backups we want, where, and when, right? And if I click on my backup destinations, you can see here that I have a primary copy on my own storage. So this is any storage that I have on my own data center, but I also have Air Gap Protect. So this works because even if I have any other storage, I also have Air Gap Protect. So if you don't have Air Gap Protect right now, you will need to make an extra copy in there. If you already have Air Gap Protect, then you don't need to do anything because you don't need to create an extra copy of your existing backups just for Cleanroom. We can use your existing copy right now, so there's nothing for you to do here if you already have it. And then, well, the third requirement is to have Cleanroom purchase, right? Assuming you have that, this is all you need, right? So now we are going to imagine that this whole environment is attacked via ransomware or any other means. So my conserve is not going to be up and running, right? Because it's part of my infrastructure. So instead, I'm going to the Commvault Cloud webpage. This is a public webpage. So this is not something that runs on my infrastructure. So even if my infrastructure is attacked by ransomware, this will always be up and running, right? Because this is on Commvault, right? So let me search for my environment. You will usually only have one in here, but we have multiple ones because this is a demo environment. So I'm going to search for the right one. And in here, we have, you saw before that I was configuring the daily backups. and I have this setting to have 5 different backups. So you can see all those 5 different backups in here. So I'm going to use the last one, which is this one in here, to launch a recovery, right? So I just click here on actions and I click start the recovery and I click submit. Now, this is basically going to create a new conserve from the backup of my old conserve, and Commvault is going to host that on the internet, on the cloud. So now I have a copy of my conserve that I can access, right? Now, this is going to take a few minutes. So I have already done this beforehand. So this should be already up and running in here. Yeah, it should be this one. Yeah, so this is already running. Again, sorry. This is the link to connect to my conserve. This is something I configured beforehand, same as my user and the password that is going to be created locally. Now, this local user and password is a temporary measure to be able to access this new conserve that's going to be created inside the clean room, because we assume your Active Directory is not working, so you will need a new user. So I already have this open on a new tab, so let me go there. So this tab in here, let me switch the tab. Yeah, this is the same conserve that you could see before, but this is not exactly the same one, because this is the one that has been recovered in the clean room, even though it looks the same because it's a backup of the previous one, right? So yeah, basically, this is my new concept, right? So now I need to actually launch the recovery of my VMs and my servers into the clean room. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to register my new Azure environment where the clean room is for this purpose, right? So I'm going to add the new Azure environment. And this is a process that is documented, and you need to do some requirements. You need to register an application inside your Azure environment. You need to assign some permissions to that, some roles, and so on. That process is not going to take really long. It's going to take like 15, 30 minutes. But this is the process that we wanted to automate. So basically right now, and this is what Gerardo just told you at the end of the presentation, this process where we register a new Azure environment and we do all of the requirements on that Azure environment is automated. And in this case, this is a previous version of the Cleanroom environment. So in this one, I don't have the automation because this is just a older version, right? So let me just do it manually. This is a subscription ID. This needs to be a real one, of course. But I'm just going to create a fake subscription ID because I'm not actually going to use this Azure environment for the Cleanroom, because I already have it configured beforehand. I'm just going to show you here how it works, but I'm not really going to use this one. So basically, you just need the credential, and you need the access node and the subscription ID. And then in this step, I'm just going to cancel, right? Because I don't really want to create anything in here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This process also needs to happen on the Azure side, where you need to go and actually create the subscription, register the application, create the role for Commvault to back up everything, and so on. Again, that is the process that is now automated, right? And what that is done either manually or automatically, just go to Cleanroom here and go to targets. So in this, the targets is basically where your Cleanroom is, right? So I'm going to add in here, just give it a nice name. And then in here, you will pick this Azure hypervisor that just created before, right? So I'm not going to do that because I already did that before, right? And then you just create the recovery group. The recovery group is basically going to say, what am I going to recover, right? So I'm going to say into that Cleanroom target that I created before, I'm just going to answer this one because it's already created. So this is basically the list of my VMs. In this case, I only have 3 VMs because, again, this is a demo environment, so it's a really small one. But you can see I have the priority in here. This basically means that I can, if I want to, I can recover my different VMs in different stages. So I can recover these 2 VMs that are like the most important ones, or the ones that host the infrastructure that I need for the other ones to work first. And then I do priority number 2, priority number 3. So I recover all of my VMs in different stages. In this case, I'm going to recover, for example, these 2 ones, doesn't really matter. And let me switch to the Azure portal. And this is the Azure portal, right? So this is the brand new subscription that I have created just for the Cleanroom, which should be empty right now because this is not my production Azure environment. This is a Cleanroom, so it should be clean, so empty, right? So the 2 VMs that I have recovered are going to be recovered into this environment. So in a minute or two, those 2 VMs that I have recovered will appear on this list. Now, the speed of that recovery is going to depend on Azure entirely. We just launched the recovery, but because this is a public cloud, it should take just a few minutes. In this case, it's just 2 VMs, so it should be probably just a few seconds to recover everything, right? Let me actually refresh. Yeah, so the VMs are in here, right? So the 2 VMs, these are 2 VMware VMs from my on-premises environment that have been recovered on Azure on a brand new subscription that is my Cleanroom, right? Using a recover conserve provided by Commvault from the backups of my conserve. That's basically the whole environment and the whole scenario. So that's what I wanted to show. Let me bring this back up. So yeah, that's pretty much the demonstration. If there are any questions, of course, you can use the chat to ask anything. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention. After you, Gerardo.
Yeah, thank you, Jose, for that. Well, just let me share my screen once again. 1 second. Yeah, I think, David, I think that's all we have for Cleanroom today, both the presentation and the demo. And of course, just as Jose said, is there any questions, please leave them in the chat. David, also, if you have any questions as well, or something to add.
Yeah, well, yeah, actually, I don't have anything to add, but also there's not been any questions. I always sort of say that if there aren't any questions, it means that the presenters on the webinar have done a fantastic job of presenting. So yeah, there's not actually been any questions. So that's really, really good. So I will just kind of, I suppose I'll just wrap up. If there are any questions, put them into the Q&A chat panel now. But yeah, just as I'm wrapping up, just say yeah, thanks very much to both Jose for that live demo and Gerardo obviously for running us through that deck on Cleanroom Recovery as well. Many thanks for attending. We really appreciate it. As I say, this will be sent out to everyone that's attended, so you can watch this back on demand, and it will be on our YouTube channel very shortly. I'm going to say probably in the next 48 hours, fingers crossed. And do visit our microsite, which has got all the Commvault Webinar Wednesdays on there as well. There is going to be our final one of the year, which is going to be Commvault's Pierre-Louis presenting, and that is on Cloud Rewind, I seem to recall. So again, that's going to be the as all these are, it's the second Wednesday of the month. So please do join that if you can. You will get a link to go and join that if you haven't already registered. So yeah, many thanks again to Jose, to Gerardo, for everyone for joining, and we'll see you for the next Commvault Webinar Wednesday. Maybe it'll be Christmas themed, who knows. All right, take care everyone. Thanks for joining. See you soon. Cheers. Thanks everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.